China's housing boom is spectacular, the most expansive public works project ever in history. Entire planned cities built prior to the people bidding on the properties and working in the businesses. It makes the millions of empty homes in the US seem like nothing. With lending practices becoming more lenient in China and interest rates remaining relatively low, the prices of housing have become very high. But when will it all come tumbling down? You came here for the truth. Let's look at the situation in China. I want to show you a very interesting information about pension funds, and I also want to talk about the critical situation that we are in. Beginning right away with China. This chart should scream to you, red alert. Okay, I hope you can read the font, but I'm just going to overview this. The green is profits and the orange is mortgage lending. And what we are talking about is the growth in mortgage loans and net profits for commercial banks. Very important to know this. Beginning in 2012, you will see that there is, in terms of the ratio here, lots of profit to be made. And also what I want to note is that despite the fluctuations, we see a growing trend in the last few years for mortgage lending. This should be noted that while many areas of the world, they don't rely on mortgages as heavily as they're taking place in the West. But when you talk about any metropolis, you find most of the same activities occur. One of those being mortgages. Okay, so we can assume that proportionately there may be more mortgages used in, let's say, New York City than in Beijing. But when we see it, sort of how much total money is being used, it's still very, very significant. Okay, so let's then compare that to 2016, where you see essentially zero profit and mortgage lending at a high, at least on this chart. It shows you what has really changed in such a short period of time. Let's cover some of the issues here. China eases, this is from last year, but the information is valid. China eases lending standards to boost housing. One of those methods is right here. China's central bank cut the minimum down payment ratios for mortgages to stimulate the housing sector. They are also getting into loans that they shouldn't be getting into. One of those subprime type loans and subprime mortgages that were such a big problem during 2008. I mean, that was basically the spark that ignited everything afterward. And yet, country after country getting into this garbage. Look, if somebody can't afford a mortgage, they shouldn't get a mortgage. They should be renting, and that's okay to rent. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be a subprime borrower. It's just too risky. And of course, there's everything else involved with it. Don't worry, if you lose out on your mortgage, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are going to step in and they'll be able to handle anything because they're backed by the government, taken over under the wing of mama government. Okay, so that's what's happening in China right now. I see this as yet another bubble. But when you look at places like Ordos and other ghost cities, you have to wonder, I mean, really, how far can public works projects go? You have the most, as I said in the intro, the most expensive public works project ever. And that's something to say, what the outcome would be, unfortunately, could be the worst thing we ever see. All right, now this to me is a bigger situation. It's more important. Drained pension fund has retired New York union workers pinching pennies to survive as doom looms for reserves across the U.S. This is just one example. Local 707, they have their pensions. They're guaranteed. The guy on the right, I believe, he has a little certificate sort of that says, okay, you're guaranteed this much money. That's your pension fund. He said in this article, I've been paying into this for year after year after year. I put my money in, and yet at the end of it, they're going to cut my pension by 1/3. Now, what if you as an individual, you have your expenses, you have, your everything that your expenses, your housing, your bills, your things for your children, everything else, and now all of a sudden, your income is cut by 1/3. I'm sure for most people that would hurt. Doesn't matter what situation you're at. If your income is cut by 1/3, all of a sudden tomorrow, not with any advance warning, you're going to be in big trouble. And that's what's happening to these individuals. Now you may think one thing or another. All I need to say is that pension funds are being looted by government. And in this case, when you have this financial crisis, and that's the reason why the pension fund had to go in and basically say, I know we promised you this much, and I know that, you paid into it, but we kind of sort of screwed up, and you're not going to get all your money. That's what I don't trust about pension funds, about bank accounts, about investment companies, because they take your money and you're under this assumption that everything is going to be okay. Look at Gerald Celente when he had money in a segregated account and they took it. And that was MF Global. To me, that's enough. That's enough for me to realize, even though it might seem like a good idea to have your money in these pension funds, I get emails all the time from people saying, I have my money in my pension, I have it in my RRSP, my 401k. If I take it out, I'm going to be penalized. What should I do? I can't tell you what to do. But if it was me, I don't want to be an individual stuck and wondering, well, I wish I would have at least got half of my money out. Look at this. I mean, people are getting screwed over all the time because you trust that money will be there. But I really, really encourage everybody to have alternatives. That's all I'm going to say about that. You do what you want. Mayor de Blasio plans to phase out cluster sites, quote, cluster sites that house the homeless by adding 90 new shelters. If 90 new shelters are coming on in New York City, what do you think the situation of homelessness is right now? It's getting so bad that, there's literally tent cities being set up all over the place. They even cage them in some areas. It's so bad. It's an epidemic. Homelessness and poverty and unemployment are so bad right now. But yet, I have a whole bunch of people consistently telling me that I'm a fearmonger, that I'm an idiot, that I'm stupid, all because I'm trying to generate revenue, trying to sell my book, which I make $4 on every time someone buys. So apparently I'm a fearmonger trying to tell people, get prepared because I don't want you to end up on the streets like all of these poor people that contact me all the time. I feel for these people. I got people contacting me from Venezuela and other areas saying they have to eat once a day because of the poverty. And I have to read this kind of silliness that people try and bring out, that they're doing well. You know what? If you're invested in something and it's been making money, I believe this. Believe me. Good for you. You're doing good, and I hope that continues. But for the majority of people, that isn't the case. And these 90 new shelters are all part of that. The tent cities being set up, all of these different factors of poverty. Russian billionaire takes 74% loss on an $85 million painting. These artworks are collectibles, okay? If you know what you're doing, in many cases, you can earn money on collectibles, right? But you can't just make money by buying a collectible and then selling it at a later date to make money. That is not how it works. This situation, it's insignificant to me. I just wanted to show you this because I do recommend collectibles more so than, let's say, a liability. Like if somebody wants to buy, for example, jewelry, or they want to put money in a mutual fund, I'm going to have to advise jewelry. Not that I'm saying you should go out and buy some necklaces or something. I'm just saying that at the very least, it has some intrinsic value. That's all. And artwork, you really got to know what you're doing. It's not just something that you buy and, you've heard of this painter before, so you decided to buy that painting. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot of knowledge. And what I've seen, in fact, is that actually in recent times, artwork has hit a little bit of a slump. So be very careful on that. Russia on Tuesday cast its seventh veto to protect the Syrian government from the United Nations Security Council action, blocking a bid by Western powers to impose sanctions over accusations of chemical weapons attacks during the 6-year Syrian conflict. All right, then China steps in, backing Russia, and cast its sixth veto on Syria. Russia had said the vote on the resolution drafted by France, Britain, and the United States would harm the UN-led peace talks between warring Syrian parties in Geneva. So, China and Russia clearly siding here with Syria. It's very important to note that. And I do believe that if war sparks in Syria more than it is right now, you will have Russia, China, and even Iran, remember they have a presence there as well, stepping in to a greater degree. This is very critical because a proxy war could turn into something much bigger in a very, very short period of time, probably before you can even read the news about it. Last but not least, what's in your chicken sandwich? Well. DNA tests shows Subway sandwiches could contain just 50% chicken. You order the chicken sandwich, you're hoping that slab of chicken inside there is chicken. Well, unfortunately, it's only half chicken. It's mostly soy. So what they found in this particular case, that unfortunately a lot of that is in fact just filler. It's garbage. It's processed food. What they tested a whole bunch of different sandwiches here and found that, there's varying degrees. They were able to determine that, there's all these different ingredients within these sandwiches. It's processed, right? That's fine. I think it's a little bit disgusting, but it doesn't matter. If you choose to eat it, that's fine. What I wanted to point out here is that when people are eating, let's say they go for the chicken, and they have an allergic reaction, or perhaps they have some irritable bowel syndrome, or they're, inflamed with Crohn's, or all these different ulcerative colitis, anything else. It's very difficult then to determine what the cause is exactly if you are eating food that contains multiple constituents, other things in there that isn't necessarily what you think it is. You think you're getting chicken and bread, but really you're getting let's say 50 different chemicals or types of food in there. It's causing a lot of problems, processed food, and that's why I suggest people don't eat any of this processed food, eat whole foods instead. I know it's not about this channel is not about that, but what I see the diseases that are influx occurring, it's a very big problem. Of course, that brings upon the healthcare issues that we have now. We have people dying of all types of different cancers and stuff. People can't figure it out, but this is one This is a very serious problem. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. So head over to Amazon because they have a look inside feature that's going to allow you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Take care. I mentioned this before, but recently I revamped the pricing on my books because I just released my new book, The Global Economic Collapse, for the Money GPS series. The Kindle, for those who are interested in Kindle, the price is extremely cheap right now. I put it for $9.99, but Amazon has decided to sell it for $7.62. So if you have a Kindle, you're interested in that, get it. I recommend the paperback, but if you have a Kindle, you're into that, then the price is ridiculously cheap at this time. So check that out. Thanks. Take care.